Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Josh Does Coding. In today's tutorial, we're going to be looking at shooting a projectile from the player. So we're going to hop straight into the video. If you haven't checked out my previous video of adding rotation to the player, I do suggest watching that video now because we are going to be using some of the functionality from there to spawn the bullet in the proper location. So I definitely recommend checking that out. The link will be in the description. But if you already have it all set up, we can just go straight to project settings here. You can come down to engine, go to input, and add a new action mapping. Just click this little plus arrow. You'll get a new action mapping, and we're just going to call this shoot. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to assign it to the left mouse button. You can assign it to whatever button you want. So again, a new action mapping. Name it and assign it a button. Once you do that, you can go ahead and exit out. Now we have to actually create the bullet's blueprints. So to do that, you're going to right click down here in content. You're going to go blueprint class. You're going to choose an actor. And I'm going to go ahead and name it bullet BP. You can name it whatever you want. But you're going to go ahead and open your bullet blueprint now. And you should see this, just the self-reference and the default scene route. So we're going to click Add Components, and we're going to search for a sphere. Now the reason we're adding the sphere is just so that the player can see the projectile in the world. It doesn't have to be a sphere. It can be whatever shape you want, but I'm going to do a sphere just because it looks sort of like a bullet. And I'm going to set the scale of the sphere down to 0.2 for the X, Y, and Z of it. If you aren't aware how to do this, you simply click on the sphere component, come over to transform here, and you will see scale. Again, the scale doesn't actually matter, it's just cosmetic. I just think 0.2 looks good. So once you're done that, we're going to add another component, and it is going to be a sphere collision. And we'll call it sphere col for sphere collision. So by default, you will see that it might be a bit big. So to fix that, you can just click on the components, come over to the right side here under shape, and you can just lower the sphere radius until you're satisfied with it. So you can see we just lowered it there. Now the final thing you're going to need to add is a new component. It's going to be a projectile movement component. So again, just add component, search for projectile movements. And then if you come over to the right side, you can see projectile, and you'll see initial speed and max speed. So for initial speed, we're just going to set it to, let's say, 2000 for now. You can set it to whatever you want. That's completely up to you. And I'm also going to set max speed to 2000. So initial speed is the speed that the bullet will be moving when it spawns, and the max speed is the max speed it can reach. So once you've done that, you can compile and save, and you should have a sphere collision, and a projectile movement. So what we can do now is we can actually come here. So if you come to the bullet BP self-reference, so the very top thing right below add component, and you come down to the right side over here, and you go down to actor, you can set an initial lifespan. So the initial lifespan means how many seconds it will last in the scene or the level before it gets destroyed. So I'm going to set it to, let's say, 3 seconds for now. Again, you can set it to whatever you want, or you can just leave it at 0, which means it will never get destroyed. So there's two ways you can deal with projectiles being destroyed. You can either do the initial lifespan, like this, or you can use your collision sphere to detect if it hits something, then destroy it when it hits something. Or you can combine both, so that if you don't hit something in 3 seconds, it gets deleted. However, in this video, we aren't going to go over collision just yet, because I do think collision should be its own tutorial. So that will most likely be the next video I work on. So for now, we're just going to do initial lifespan. However, if you are familiar with how collision works, feel free to use this sphere collision. So again, just go to bullet BP and set the initial lifespan to whatever you want. Then you can compile and save again. And we are done with the bullet BP, so you can just exit or minimize whatever you want. And now we're going to go over to the player blueprint. So again, if you don't already have the rotation setup, I recommend getting the rotation setup right here. It's a very short tutorial. I'd recommend checking it out because you will see that with this added in, we'll actually be able to rotate and shoot the bullet where we're moving. So that is a plus. And then we actually delete that, sorry. All right, so once you're in the player BP, what you're going to want to do is come over to add components, and you're going to want to add a camera to begin with. And you can just leave it as camera, and then you're going to want to add a arrow as well. Arrow, or yeah, we'll call it. We're going to go ahead and call it bullet arrow, just like that. And you're going to want it to be attached to the camera. So the way you can tell if it's attached to the camera is you'll get this little drop down beside camera. And if you click it, you can see that bullet arrow goes away with it. And that means that it's attached. Whereas if it weren't attached, so if we just drag it out here, you'll see that there's no drop down beside camera. So if it's not attached, you just want to click it, hold it, and drag it to the camera. Now wherever we move the camera, the arrow will follow by default. So we're going to move the camera up to about head level. You can move it wherever you want, which also means that the bullet is going to be spawning right here. And then if you have a gun mesh or something, feel free to add the bullet arrow to the mesh. But for now, we're going to be attaching it to the camera. So once you have these two components added, you can go ahead and head over to the event graph. So what we're going to want to do is grab the bullet arrow, and we're going to want to get its world location. So just, again, drag bullet arrow into the scene. Then you're going to drag out, and you're going to get world location. And we can, get world location. And you can see you're just going to drag the bullet arrow into the target. And you're also going to go ahead and get world rotation. So now we're getting the rotation and the location of the bullet arrow. Now the reason for that is we want it to spawn wherever the player is rotated. Because say the player looks to the left, we now want to make sure that we're shooting to the left, which is why we're getting the rotation. Because if we didn't get the rotation and we only use the location, we would just shoot forward in the way the player originally spawned instead of the way the player's currently looking, if that makes sense. So what you're going to do after you get both of these is you're going to go ahead and drag out the return value of world rotation. And you're going to make transform. Again, math, make transform. So rotation, and you're going to drag the return value of location into the location. Then from here, what you're going to do is we're going to search for that action we made earlier. So the action event shoot. Then when we press it, we're going to search for spawn actor from class. For class, we're just going to click the little drop down here, and we're going to search for our bullet BP. And we're going to set the spawn transform to the make transform that we just made. Now we can compile and save that, and we can hop into the world. So now you can see when we play, every time I left click, no matter which way I'm rotating, the bullet is going to spawn and travel forward. So there you go. That's the basic sphere collision. So, quickly, what you just saw there was that we were actually hitting the spheres, and we were dragging ourselves into it right there. So you might want to drag the bullet spawn a bit in front of the player for now, so that you don't have to deal with that. There you go. But yeah, that is your basic bullet collision or projectile spawning or slash shooting with the player. And if you look onto the right side, you can see that the bullets are slowly getting deleted after a certain amount of seconds. You can see they get deleted. And yeah, that was how you set up basic projectile shooting with the player. In the next video, we're going to go over how to detect if you're hitting an object, or specifically if you're hitting an enemy, and how to deal damage to that enemy from the projectile. So, I hope this video helped you guys get your shooting set up. If it did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, be sure to leave a comment on how I can improve these tutorials. I'm still very new, so I apologize if something wasn't made clear during the tutorial, or if I was going too fast, too slow, whatever it might be. If you have any questions, feel free to also leave a comment down below, and I'll answer as quickly as I can. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and good luck with your games.